Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ray Seaman, and I am here on behalf of Progress Florida. And I am proud to be joined here today by state legislators representing Floridians throughout the state and advocates from many great organizations concerned about a wide range of issues facing our great state. We're here today to deliver the people's response to the governor's State of the State address. Florida's progressives believe that it's time for a new day here in the Sunshine State, and today we're launching the Sunrise Agenda to put Floridians first, prioritizing our economy, our students, our health care, our environment, and our people. By standing together, we can change the direction of Florida. To kick us off and provide us with an overview of the Sunrise Agenda is Senate Democratic Leader Audrey Gibson. Leader Gibson.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to the people of the great state of Florida. I'm from Jacksonville Senate District 6 and honored to serve in the Florida Senate. And thank you. It's great to be part of the people's response. I call it the bright sunrise agenda that we're unveiling here today is based on a simple yet powerful idea that Florida should work for every Floridian. Imagine that. For too long, hardworking Floridians have been struggling to make ends meet while the wealthiest and the well-connected among us have rigged the rules to benefit themselves. The conservative majority that has ruled the state government for more than 20 years are only interested in preserving this unsustainable status quo and protecting their own power. The Bright Sunrise Agenda recognizes that the focus of our state government must be on the people who make Florida work every single day. People like our teachers, retirees, nurses, and small business owners. Those are the people that Florida needs to work for, and those are the individuals that make Florida work. Each of our speakers today will address one of the pillars of the Sunrise Agenda: our economy, our health, our students, our environment, and our people. Taken together, the Sunrise Agenda is the foundation of a progressive platform that will build a Florida that works for every Floridian. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Gibson. Next, I want to introduce two speakers who will be talking about our economy and how we build an economy here in Florida that works for every Floridian. First, we have Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez, and then we'll have Rich Templin of the Florida AFL-CIO. Senator Rodriguez.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. We have a really great showing here. I'm Jose Javier Rodriguez. I have the honor of representing Miami here in the Florida Senate. One of the things that many of us are painfully aware of with representing our constituents is that when you work full-time all year round, for many Floridians, that's still below the federal poverty level. We need to raise the minimum wage. We have filed legislation. I have filed legislation, and my colleagues in the House have done the same thing, to gradually get to $15 an hour, which is where we ought to be with our minimum wage here in the state of Florida. Many of us here are also supporting efforts not to raid the trust funds that support affordable housing and transportation. These are critical dollars that working families need and rely on. Every year, this legislature passes more and more tax breaks that really are shifting the burden onto working families and off of corporations that can come up here and lobby. We need to fix that and instead put those dollars back into the trust funds for affordable housing and transportation that everyday working families need. Two other topics that I'll hit on briefly. One, I have two young children. Until they're 18, they don't have a choice. They're growing up here in Florida. After that, I would love for them to have the choice to continue living in Miami, in South Florida, in Florida. We will not have that choice if we do not act on climate. I'm going to continue. I will continue to wear these rain boots here. It is a critical priority. It should not be partisan. It should not even be ideological.
It's economic too.
Yeah, sea level rise is happening, and so is climate change. As you said, it's an economic issue. We're already going to be paying the price. We need to keep our future generations in mind as well. And another economic issue, listen, economics, we ought to be focusing on addressing racial profiling, addressing the divisions in our community that keep us apart and keep economic opportunities away. We should not be pretending like they're sanctuary cities here to divide people. So we need to continue to walk on it. So thank you very much. I'm honored to be followed by Rich Templin with the AFL-CIO, representing working people all over Florida.
It's an honor to follow Senator Rodriguez, who has been a true champion for working families during his entire time here in the legislative process. Just want to start out by saying Happy Mardi Gras. I bring up Mardi Gras because tomorrow we enter a time where millions of Americans will go into a period of reflection, repentance, and for those that practice Lent, action. Today, we need the legislature to reflect, to repent, and to take action. We heard a lot just now about the state of Florida, the low taxes, that taxes will never go up, that we will never have revenue. Here's what we didn't hear. 3.2 million households, 45% of all households in the state classify as working poor. The poverty rate, 2 points higher than the national average. Workers who have seen only $1.27 in wage increases since 2000. 25 affordable housing units for every 100 families who need them. We are top 3 in income inequality in the United States. Our median income is 39th in the nation. We are 50th in the nation for K through 12 education spending. 2 million have no access to health care. 450,000 children have no access to health care because they have no insurance. 13% of people unemployed through no fault of their own qualify for benefits, making us the 52nd worst in the nation when you consider DC and Puerto Rico. And we have the second most regressive tax structure in the United States of America. The Sunshine Agenda is about addressing these problems and more. And one of the ways that they will do that is by eliminating the tax cut schemes that we see every single session. Everybody climbs over each other to find another way to reduce revenue to take care of working Floridians. We want to close the over $5 billion in special interest loopholes and exemption that riddle our tax code like Swiss cheese. We want to generate the income that we need by making the more powerful and the biggest corporations just pay their fair share for the state to work.
Pay your taxes.
And finally, a bit of a shameless plug considering where I come from, we need to stop trying to tear down the unions in Florida that are fighting hard for working families every single day. And as a matter of fact, tomorrow morning in the House, the second day of session, a new measure to strip unions from the state of Florida, and that'll be happening in a committee meeting at 8 a.m. I won't get into that here. All of this, all of the Sunrise Agenda is for all of those people that we have talked about, the people that are forgotten. So today, on Mardi Gras, we urge the legislature tomorrow to wake up, reflect, repent, and take action. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich and Senator Rodriguez. Now let me introduce three speakers, who will be talking about the Our Health pillar of the Sunrise Agenda. First, we have Representative Anna Eskamani, and then Kim Scott of Planned Parenthood, and finally Kristen Erickson, a Ph.D. student at Florida State University. So, Representative Eskamani.
Thank you, Ray. How's it going, Florida? Ready for session? Yes. I'm proud to be here with the Sunrise Agenda. My name is Representative Anna V. Eskamani, proudly serving District 47, the Florida House. We are home to Orlando, Winter Park, and Belle Isle, and I stand in solidarity to fight for access to health care for every Floridian, no matter how much money you make or where you live. You deserve to access health care with a pre-existing condition. You should not be denied coverage for any reason, and we stand together united for Medicaid expansion. Because we know there are nearly 1 million Floridians who lack access to coverage because they fall in the coverage gap. And let me tell you, if the legislature ain't going to do it, the voters will. Am I right? Yes. We also stand together on the cost of pharmacy drugs. We want to see the middleman of pharmacy billing managers be addressed. We want to see a progressive agenda when it comes to importing new drugs to cover the cost of it, to hope we'll find some common ground on those issues. We also know that we have a crisis on mental health in our great state. And we want to do our part to get Florida out of the bottom of the barrel when it comes to ranking 48 out of 50 on mental health funding. We can and must do better. And of course, next we have Planned Parenthood speaking. I'm proud to have worked at Planned Parenthood for 6 years. And my Planned Parenthood story comes from humble beginnings, one that many women can relate to, as 1 in 5 American women have been a Planned Parenthood patient at some point in their life, and that includes me. And 1 in 4 women in this country have had an abortion as well. And they deserve to be honored and recognized for the courageous decision they made between their family, their doctor, their faith, and not politicians. Woo! And of course, in case there was any debate about it, I want y'all to know that I am not a host body. With that said, join me in welcoming Kim Scott from Planned Parenthood.
Thank you, Representative Eskamani. Yes, we are not host bodies. The Sunrise Agenda notes that we should trust women to make their own healthcare decisions. The vast majority of Floridians agree, but yet the focus of too many of our state's leaders has been to shame, pressure, politicize, and punish women while violating their constitutional rights.
Ain't right?
Let's be clear. Abortion is healthcare. I want to introduce Kristen Erickson, whose personal story illustrates a fundamental truth. We can't have a strong healthcare system that supports healthy communities without reproductive freedom. Kristen?
Hello. I was 15. My mom and I were doing our best to make it on our own, but her health was always very poor. She slipped further into her depression and addiction as her chronic pain worsened and her own mother passed. We had already been evicted 3 times that year when I realized I was pregnant. I knew that if I had to continue the pregnancy, my life would basically be over. There was no way I could possibly provide for a child. We had no money, no stable living situation, and no support network. I dreamed of going to college and acquiring the education necessary to break the cycle of poverty that had ravaged my family for generations. I fear this would have been impossible if I had been forced to carry the pregnancy to term. So I sought out abortion healthcare services from Planned Parenthood. They informed me about the parental notification requirement, and my heart just stopped. I knew that if my mom found out I was pregnant, I would be kicked out of the house. I shared this information with the Planned Parenthood staff, and they kindly informed me that I could petition to get the notification waived. I went to the courthouse with a guardian ad litem and was granted the notification waiver. I am so grateful for these people, their commitment to protecting my right to make the decision for myself, and their respect for my vision for my future. My friend Zach drove me to the Orlando Planned Parenthood for the procedure. While we waited for the appointment, I cried out of fear and shame as anti-choice protesters scolded and judged me. 11 years later, I am in my 4th year of a Ph.D. program at Florida State University. I am living the future I could only dream of as a 15-year-old. Without the counseling and abortion care Planned Parenthood provides, I would not be standing here talking to you today. For me and all the people with uteruses who deserve a chance to pursue their dreams, I urge you to stand up and fight against the unjust restrictions Florida legislature is attempting to place on our right to make decisions about our own bodies and our own futures. Thank you.
Thank you all. Now let me introduce Representative Chevron Jones, who will be talking about the Our Students pillar of the Sunrise Agenda. Representative Jones.
Soon to be senator.
Good morning, Florida. It's definitely good to be here with you all today. And let me give a message to the governor that although you outlined a education agenda, you forgot about one thing. You forgot about our public schools. You made not one mention of our public school system. And for the past 20 years, it is very true that our Republican colleagues, you have been in control. So the mess that you speak of, you made it. The mess that you've made for the past 20 years, you have used our children as your bargaining chip to give to your friends as real estate property. You have, for the past 20 years, you have ensured that you call it voucher to help minority students, and you march black kids around the Capitol, and you say that everything that you're doing is for them. But with truth be told, what we have seen is the double down of our public education system. And for the past 20 years, you've been in charge of it. You've ignored our public school teachers. You've over-tested our students. You diverted critical public funds to unaccountable private voucher schemes, all in the name of saying that you want to ensure that we up our achievement. But when the state of Florida, we have not even hit the mark of achievement nationally. So the Sunrise Agenda, we're calling for the funding for a world-class public education system. And that world-class education system means that our students have access to all the classes and services that they need. That includes the vocational education. It also means our schools have the support staff needed to ensure that they're safe and healthy. And hear me when I say this. When I say that safe, I do not mean that we're arming teachers. When I say safe, that does not mean that the dollars that you want to give for school safety are tied to whether or not they arm teachers. If you are serious about school safety, give districts their money so they can ensure that our school and students are safe. That's how we ensure that you want to make sure that schools are safe. And my last point, that a world-class education system, that when you want to make sure that teachers receive bonuses, a bonus is fine. But let's be clear that we have teachers working 2, 3, and 4 jobs because the state of Florida do not value them the way that they should. So yes, give them their $10,000 bonus, but on top of that, pay them $50,000. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Jones. Now let me introduce two speakers who will be talking about the Our Environment pillar of the Sunrise Agenda. So first we have Representative Margaret Good and then Aliki Moncrief of Florida Conservation Voters. Representative Good.
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Good. I represent Florida House District 72, and for the record, I am also not a host body. But I'm here to talk about the environment. The Florida Democrats and the Sunrise Agenda recognizes the need to protect and preserve Florida's environment. We know that a healthy environment is critical for a prosperous economy. Yet, for 20 years, we have not paid enough attention to our environment, and it is time to change that. The Sunrise Agenda addresses issues that are harming Florida's environment, particularly our water quality. We need policies that prevent pollution, not policies that mitigate it and clean it up on the back end. We need to deal with non-point source pollution. We need to find ways to clean up our water before it gets dirty. And that's what the Sunrise Agenda does. Our environment can no longer be ignored. We have seen it affect our health. We have seen it affect our livelihoods. We must take action now.
I'm Aliki Moncrief. I'm the Executive Director of Florida Conservation Voters. And in addition to the wonderful comments that Representative Good just shared, I wanted to share that the Sunrise Agenda is about finally letting the sun shine in Florida to bring clean energy for all Floridians. Affordable, clean, renewable energy options are available to other places in other states, more so than here in the Sunshine State. And if we are going to be serious about protecting our environment, we have to be serious about the biggest crisis that generations today face, and that is climate change. In Florida, there's two sides of climate change that we have to be thinking about. One is making sure that our communities are resilient and that they are able to adapt to changes that are happening. Sea level rise, sunny day flooding, they're happening across our communities already. But the other side of the coin that must not be forgotten, if we're going to be serious not only about tackling climate change but protecting our environment, is mitigating our emissions, cutting back on our carbon and greenhouse gas emissions. Both of those things are essential, both of those things are possible, and the Sunrise Agenda demands that we provide nothing less for Floridians.
Right. All right. Thank you, Aliki and Representative Good. Now let me introduce four speakers who will be talking about the Our People pillar of the Sunrise Agenda. First, we'll have Representative Geraldine Thompson. Then we'll have Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith. And finally, Representative Fentrice Driscoll and Jennifer Webb.
You know, it matters who gets elected, because the person who gets elected makes decisions for all Floridians. And we can only build a Florida that works for everyone if we have fair and reliable elections. We have a federal court ruling that says that Florida's vote by mail signature match requirement is onerous and tends to disenfranchise people. So we want a Sunrise Agenda that calls for modernizing our election system to ensure every Floridian's voice is heard. That's why we need to make voting easy and convenient as we can and not make voting hard. Fair elections in Florida means being able to register to vote at your polling place, just like 16 other states have already done. It also means having robust early voting with convenient hours for working people. I have filed House Bill 1365 to make sure that our ballots are easy to understand and that there's a standard design statewide. Finally, voters should be given a reasonable amount of time to correct any errors with their vote by mail ballots. Let's ensure Florida's elections remain free, fair, and convenient. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Thompson. Every Floridian has a right to safety, which is why the Sunrise Agenda addresses one of the greatest safety threats to our state. That is gun violence. My name is Carlos Guillermo Smith, and I represent a district in East Orange County in Orlando, Florida. And our message, my message for Governor DeSantis is very simple. Do not follow in the footsteps of your predecessor, Rick Scott, by picking and choosing which victims of gun violence you care about and which ones you do not. We need to care about the victims of gun violence in Florida when they are in our airports, in our nightclubs, whether they're gay or straight, in our yoga studios, in our banks, and every single day on the streets of the state of Florida where gun violence victims are piling up around the state. We have to care when it happens in our public schools as well, which is why we are advocating for a comprehensive gun violence prevention agenda, because we know that there is no single end-all solution to the epidemic of gun violence. And it's certainly not only a platform about what do we oppose. And let me be clear, we oppose arming teachers in our public schools. But it's what are we for? Yes, we are for a ban on assault weapons and large capacity magazines. Yes, we support universal criminal background checks on all firearm purchases. Yes, we support tougher licensing requirements for concealed weapons permits. Yes, we believe that domestic violence abusers and perpetrators of hate crimes should not have access to firearms. And yes, we need to make sure that we stand with Representative Chevron Jones and others who have called on Governor Ron DeSantis to create a new public safety task force that looks at gun violence in communities of color and on the streets every day in the state of Florida. We are going to be unapologetic about our platform to address the gun violence epidemic in our state, and we do it to honor those who have already been taken by gun violence with action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. My name is Fentress Driscoll, and I represent Florida House District 63. And those words by Martin Luther King Jr. always inspire me. I stand proudly here as an ally to our LGBTQ brothers and sisters across the state of Florida. It's my honor to co-sponsor legislation that I'm sure you'll hear about in a moment from my colleague, Representative Webb, but as you've heard, the foundation of the Sunrise Agenda is about a Florida that truly works for everyone. That's why our agenda calls for the expansion of non-discrimination protections in our state. Currently in Florida, you can be denied a job or a place to live simply because of the person you love. That's not right, and it has to end. That's right. Here to tell you a little bit more about that is my colleague, Jennifer Webb.
Thank you, Representative Driscoll. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Representative Jennifer Webb, and I represent House District 69 in Pinellas County. And I am honored to be here before you today supporting the Sunrise Agenda, especially as it impacts my LGBT community. As the first lesbian elected to higher office in the state of Florida, I am honored at the opportunity to shepherd forward and to vote for inclusive legislation that builds on the best of our scientific knowledge and the best of our lessons learned from the history of our past, and that is decriminalizing HIV positive status and making sure that people aren't overly burdened with prosecution that doesn't match the STI prosecution of other people, and making sure that we do not criminalize HIV so that HIV positive people can contribute their organs to others so that they can save other people's lives. What we know is people with HIV are living longer now than they ever have thanks to modern medicine, and our legislation must keep up with that. What we know is that we're righting the wrongs of our past and the past of our state and nation by repealing DOMA and taking those gross words out of our Constitution so that every marriage is treated equally, and we're making sure that it is no longer inscribed in our Constitution, because hate has no place there. And we're making sure that we keep the integrity of full inclusive expansion of the Civil Rights Act of 1992 so that all of my brothers and sisters across the state will be protected when it comes to access to the workforce, housing, and public spaces. Because now is not the time to turn our backs on any section of our community or to make sure that one section doesn't have access to what's important to them. And I am so proud to stand here with the Sunrise Agenda and my colleagues in the House and Senate in putting forward this agenda. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. Thank you to all of our legislative speakers, our advocates, and everyone who came out today. This concludes the People's Response, and you can learn more about the Sunrise Agenda by going to www.flsunriseagenda.com. Thank you all for coming today.